when I tell people I'm from Mexico, they don't know if they should laugh and they don't know if they should believe me. The first barrier that I faced living in the United States was just being able to connect with Americans. I was like, man, why can't I talk to these Americans? Why do I feel like so uncomfortable? I can't tell you how many times I've had a plan for my life and then just seen it take a completely different turn from like one day to the next. All I knew is I'm meeting my landlord Saturday at noon and I'm starting work Monday at 10 a.m. You know, I have an address to get into downtown Madrid. Let's see where this goes. Like, I had some of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had, and they came, you know, during some more difficult times. But
having that openness to experience and being willing to expand who you are.
Just being able to live in the present allows me to be more focused on the people around me.
The joy we feel in our lives has little to do with the circumstances of our lives. It has everything to do with the focus in our lives.
I don't know what's going to make me happy in 5-10 years. He's perfectly confident. He's a perfectly balanced individual. He knows when to be angry. He knows when to flip tables, but he also knows like when to wash people's feet.
So, who am I and what is Turn Outward? My name is Spencer Smalley, and I'm currently completing my master's in social work in order to become a licensed therapist. I've worked in mental health for 3.5 years now, and I see some concerning trends in mental health that I want to speak out against. Number one, I want to normalize being vulnerable in an online world of comparison where we post about our highs and don't talk about our lows. Number two, I want to change the narrative that we need to heal ourselves before we can help other people. Finding connection and purpose in helping others is crucial to our own healing. Number three, I want to share my faith. David Bednar says that the character of Jesus Christ is to turn out when the natural man would turn inward. Me and my guests share stories of how trusting in a higher power has allowed us to love and serve others in deeper and more meaningful ways. I want to build bridges of belief regardless of someone's underlying religious or spiritual background. I hope you'll join me in my journey of trying to help the world turn outward. All right, today we have my friend Matt Nielsen. Matt, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
No, thank you for making time. It's been a busy day for both of us. We're actually right now filming this episode at my place of work, at my office, the private practice, the counseling clinic that I work at. And worked until about 8 o'clock, and then Matt showed up at 8:15 after a busy day himself. And grateful that he's made time to do this. We've talked about this for a little bit, and I think Matt has a really interesting short story and a lot of cool perspectives to share. And so I'll give a little bit of background on how I know Matt. So Matt and I actually met back in 2021. So I was going over to my then girlfriend's apartment, and one of her mission friends was there, and that was Matt. And so I'm talking to this guy. I'm like, "Oh, what's your name? Like, where are you from?" All the the small talk. And he's like, "Oh, I'm from Mexico." And I'm like, "This guy's not from Mexico, bro. Stop. What? You're doing too much." And then he told me a little bit more about it. The where he's from specifically, and we'll get in a little bit more on that. But then didn't really think much about it. Kind of just saw you that one time, or maybe one other time other than that. But then flash forward to 2023, I moved to a new apartment complex with some of my friends, and we go to church. And here's this dude that my roommate knows that just happened to meet him at the Missionary Training Center, which is a place where missionaries for our church go to kind of prepare to serve 2-year missions. And he's talking to this guy, and he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" "Matt." "Where are you from?" Like, "Oh, I'm from Mexico." And I was like, why does this guy seem so familiar? What the freak? And I think it took us a while to like remake that connection.
Yeah,
we talked like a couple times.
Yeah, there was some familiarity there for sure the first time, and we had to really like think back. Where have I seen this guy before? Because your face was so familiar, man. So familiar.
Well, I looked a little bit different too, because I had like long, like not curly hair, but like longer hair, and just like parted it. Whereas the first time I met you, I'd had like a little bit shorter hair like you have right
Yeah.
now, and I think I had a beard too.
I think
So
you did. I think, and that
yeah,
would like cover up your face real good too. So
yeah. Whereas when I first met you, I had a little baby face.
yeah,
So
you grew up
yeah,
the next time
yeah,
around.
a little bit, a little bit. So yeah, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, your background, and all that.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I'm white. I don't look Mexican, and so when I tell people I'm from Mexico, they don't know if they should laugh, and they don't know if they should believe me. They kind of get a funny face, and then they ask if I'm being for real, and I say, yeah, actually, I'm a fourth or fifth generation Mexican, and then that kind of sparks more questions. Why? How long were you living there? Were you born there, or did you, you lived there for 5 years and then you moved to the United States? And so I've had to tell this story quite a few times over the last 6 years since I left Mexico. But basically, about maybe 150 years ago, Brigham Young, when he had recently established Utah, and Utah became a territory, and it was on its path to becoming a state, he sent some Mormon pioneers down to the state of Chihuahua to take the gospel message from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to Mexico. And so one of the people he sent down was my great 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 grandpa, I want to say. A lot of greats. And he went down, another group of Americans, they all went down, and they settled a town, and they named it Colonia Dulan. And that's where I come from. So my mom was born and raised there, and my dad, who was born and raised in a similar colony about 20 minutes away called Colonia Juarez, he was born and raised there too. So my parents, they met in high school. They knew each other growing up, and they were best friends. Eventually, they both moved to Utah, and while my dad was at BYU, my mom was at UVU. They decided to get married, and so they had their first two kids, my older brother, my older sister. They had their kids here in Utah, and then they moved back down to Mexico to that colony, and they set up their life there. So my brother right above me, myself, and my younger sister, we were all born down there, and I had a lot of uncles and a lot of both grandparents lived down there. So I had a lot of cousins, a lot of family where I lived growing up, and it's just kind of like this. I mean, a little bit about the town. It's it's uh it's like this community of about maybe 250 Americans, I want to say, living there now, that either were all born and raised down there, or some of them that were raised down there, they moved to the United States, got married, moved back down. So there's just kind of like this generational flow of Americans living in
And when
this
you say
town.
American, you mean like culturally American.
Yeah, culturally American, and I guess racially Caucasian as well too.
Yeah.
So it's like that's that,
But nationally Mexican.
but nationally Mexican, exactly. So the town where I'm from is it's called Nuevo Casas Grandes, Chihuahua, but the population, I want to say, is about 70,000, and then there's still about 250 Americans living down there, including my parents.
Very cool. I definitely would love to visit like either Colonia Juarez or some of the other colonies and towns down there, and just see what the vibe is like down there, because I think that's so cool, because you guys are like a very unique part of the population. So I feel like because you are kind of unique, it's a very close knit community. Like you guys kind of have to be, you kind of have to like stick together a little bit, and like everybody knows everybody. It's like a really peaceful place. There's a lot of like orchards. There's a lot of farms down there. A lot of like good vibes, and just like really tranquilo, as they say in Spanish, So I feel like that's really cool. One thing when I was kind of talking to you, and we've had discussions about this, is like it's been kind of interesting for you to come to Utah and kind of leave that community. Like you said, you've had to explain to people over and over again like who you are and what your story is. And so kind of talk to us a little bit about what it's like to kind of find yourself outside of the community and like the benefits of growing up in that community and also what it's taught you kind of being apart from it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think, just to start with some of the benefits, it was a very, very exciting childhood. I think it was very rare in the sense that because it was such a close knit community down there, everybody was kind of my aunt and uncle, even if they weren't my aunt or uncle by blood. We just called each other Tio, Tia, uncle this, uncle that, And I mean, my grandma, everybody in the town calls her grandma. She's like the grandma of the town. So I think that allowed for a lot of freedom for the kids to just roam around, to kind of go wherever they wanted, go from one friend's house to the next, to the next, to the next friend's house. And there wasn't a whole ton of like adult supervision. So we were just, able to go out to the orchards, play hide and go seek, go to the ponds, go fishing, hop on some four wheelers, ride around town, tear up the fields. And I think my childhood was something that not a lot of people get to experience. It's just that small town feel, but also being able to grow up with my friends as well from the time I was 1 or 2 years old. Just today I told you I was moving a mattress. I'm moving in with one of my best friends here in Linden, and my very first memory of him is when he was 1 year old and I was 2 years old down in Mexico. And so because of that upbringing, I think I was able to solidify and keep a lot of these long-term friendships that I've had for over 20 years. And I know that's a very rare thing for people to say, yeah, we've been friends since we were 1, 2 years old. And so it's really taught me to value my friends and to value those friendships and to like take care of them. And I think that I don't know. I'm just super grateful for those friendships that I have been able to cultivate down there and just see how they've followed me to the United States. A lot of the people that I met in Mexico, they've all kind of ended up in Utah, whether they're my cousins or they're just, friends. And it's just something that I'll be really grateful for.
Yeah. I served as a Spanish speaking missionary and had a lot of chance to learn more about Latino culture and kind of note the differences between Latino culture and American culture. Even though I served my mission for the church here in the States, I was in Arkansas and parts of Tennessee and Mississippi. You still note those cultural differences, and I've been able to visit Mexico and hoping to visit other Latin American countries. But one of the biggest cultural differences, and I've learned about this in, my social psychology and cultural psychology classes. One of the biggest differences between like Latin American countries and here in the U.S. is individualism versus collectivism. So other countries like Latin American countries, Asian countries, African countries, they are known as more collectivistic, which a simple way to think about it is more community oriented, whereas more like Western capitalistic countries are more individualistic. So it's more like focus on the individual and individual pursuits, making money, becoming independent financially, and kind of living more for oneself. Whereas in the collective communities, it's more living for the family or the community. It's all kind of like the family coco,
Yeah.
Whereas like, you see a lot of families where it's not just, the parents and the children in the household, but it's like, there might be some aunts and uncles. You see it in, what's the Disney movie with the Colombian? Encanto.
Encanto, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the whole family is like its own little village, and they're all really together. Aunts and uncles, grandparents, great aunts, second cousins, all these people. It's like one really cool community that's like really close knit and tight. And there's a saying that like it takes a village to raise a child. And so one thing that I have a lot of envy about is like in these communities, you have like a lot of extra support outside of like your family and your siblings, right? And so you have like mentors and like father figures, aunts, uncles, even people that might not be like closely related by blood, they still kind of, like you said, they have that kind of familial role. And so for you, like, do you feel like that played a huge role in like helping you develop into the person that you are?
Oh, 100%. As you were, relating that, I had like 8 or 9 people come through my head that either were uncles or aunts or just football coaches, just people who played different roles in my life and how dramatic of a impact they had. And I think when I left Mexico when I was 18 to go serve a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I served in Kentucky. So my first real experience living in the United States was serving a mission. And before I left, I remember giving a talk or a sermon in my congregation, and I kind of went down the list of all the people that have impacted me, and it was a pretty extensive list. And even now, I'm starting to get all these memories and all these flashbacks of specific moments where people's words, just totally changed the way I was going to look at, deciding to go on a mission or deciding what colleges to go to. And it really was just this collective effort for people to raise me. So exactly that I, uh, I've definitely experienced that and seen how the more the merrier, the more family, the more people that you can surround yourself that love you, um, the more it's going to be able to benefit your future, And I think another thing that comes to mind is when I first went to the United States, I did. It wasn't like it was my first time going to the United States when I moved out of my home and going to Kentucky. I had grown up visiting. I had family in Arizona. I had family in Utah. I went to a couple of EFYs or youth camps in Utah and California. And just a quick side note, when I did go to those youth camps, that was the first time I realized, like, wait, being from Mexico and white, like, that's not normal. And people were telling me that I had an accent when I spoke English. They were asking all these questions that kind of just like made me realize, wow, this is a very different place to live. And I don't want to say I grew up in a bubble, but to an extent, I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to anywhere outside of Mexico. And so I started learning. That's, I think, when I started to realize that, okay, this is not the world, this is a piece of what the world can be. And when I went to Kentucky for the first time, the real, um, I guess, barrier you could call it, the first barrier that I faced living in the United States was just being able to connect with Americans. As crazy as that sounds, my whole life I had been able to, have good conversations, connect and understand people in my community because we came from the same place. And obviously with Mexicans because, most of my friends growing up, we were all Mexican, or they were all, Mexican racially, nationally. And whereas I had grown up kind of with this American culture mixed in with this Mexican culture. So I wasn't like, I was celebrating the 4th of July, but I was also celebrating the 16th of September, which is the independence for Mexico, the Day of Independence for Mexico. So I had kind of all these different cultural celebrations kind of implanted into me and all these different traditions. So when I went to Kentucky and I was fully in the United States, I was like, man, why can't I talk to these Americans? Why do I feel like so uncomfortable? There's just kind of like this mental block in my mind. And that was like that was just really interesting to me. I did not expect that. I was like, yeah, I could talk to anybody. But then as soon as I would hang out with or meet, anybody from Latin America, then this whole like my Mexican side would come out and I would just like kind of relax and I found it a lot easier to talk to them for that reason. So I just kind of go back to your first question about some of the, I don't want to say barriers because it's not like these are extremely, difficult things,
Well,
but
like
like
challenges.
challenges. That's a better word. Challenges that I didn't expect to face. You know what I'm saying?
Have you noticed that for yourself though, that like since moving here to Utah and like going to school and kind of living this adult life outside of your original community that it's like a little bit it's been in like a little bit of an adjustment for you, like adjusting to that individualized culture? Do you kind of miss that sense of community and all that?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I mean the good thing is I still am able to make it down to Mexico about twice a year, typically for Christmas, sometime in the summer. Uh and it's good to be able to reconnect, to go back to your roots a little bit, to remember like, oh wait, you know, I'm just as much Mexican as I am American. And someone once told me, I met somebody from Colombia once, and he had lived in Spain for, I don't know, 10 years. And after those 10 years, he moved to Switzerland, and that's when I met him. And he tells me this phrase that made me really reflect on my own like personality and my own traits. He goes, when you leave your country behind and you move to a different country, you become even more of that nationality. So he's from Colombia. So he said, when I moved to Spain, when I came to Switzerland, I became even more Colombian. And I like really channeled my inner Colombian and like really learned to, I started cooking Colombian food more. I started watching Colombian soccer games more. And he like found something that was familiar to him, which was his home country, but he just emphasized that into his livelihood. And I've found I've kind of done the same thing with Mexico. Coming to Utah, like I get even more excited when I'm able to talk Spanish. I feel even more patriotic when Mexico plays soccer, and it's just kind of like this. I don't know. I want to be even more Mexican and just kind of feel that familiarity. Speak Spanish with my friends from Mexico, even if they can speak English. It's just kind of like um, I don't know what you would call that. Just a way of bringing home closer to where I'm at.
Yeah. No, because I think that's really cool that you say that because I think a lot of us grow up with a sense of being sort of a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. These I know that that's something I can relate to. I didn't grow up outside of the U.S. I grew up in New Jersey, where there was very few people that looked like me. Um, a lot of my friends were, Latino or black, and a lot of like the white people on the East Coast are either of Jewish or Italian heritage. There's a lot more like Southern Europe influence, and so here's this, blonde kid, in a family of six on the East Coast. And I talked about this in my other podcast with Dallin. But growing up in the East Coast, most families are either single child or two, and then there's this Mormon family with six kids, and a lot of them have blonde hair. And I think I could count on one hand the amount of other blonde kids in my middle school. And so just kind of feeling like I didn't really belong. But it's funny, like now that I've spent a lot of time in Utah. I've been in Utah since I was 12. I really identify with being from New Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of like being from the East Coast, and like people ask me to like do my New Jersey accent, and I'll be like, yeah, forget about it. What are you talking about? Come on, you know. And I love doing it. I love talking about the things I love about the East Coast. I love the food. I love talking about like bagels here in Utah are crap. Like they're just like pieces of bread and in a circle. Like what is that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like go to the East Coast and try a real bagel. You know what I mean? And like stuff like that. And so I totally get what you mean. Do you feel like there was kind of a sense of like before you kind of found that embracing the identity, that there was that place of not really feeling like you belonged in either place?
Yeah, definitely. I think I can kind of I definitely understand you when you say you stood out like a sore thumb in New Jersey. You could count how many people that look like you at your school. I mean, it was same thing down there. I mean, the Americans really, really stand out. And so my whole life, I was kind of just used to that. Like I go into town and I'm just this white kid, walking around buying tacos or going to the store. And I don't want to like out my mom or anything, but my mom told me that she has always, I don't want to say resented, but a part of her never really fully enjoyed going into town because every time she goes into town, people are staring, people are like, wait a minute, why is there this, random white looking woman who is has lived there her entire life, whose parents have lived there their entire life, grandparents, who is from this community, and so you just kind of you do stick out a little bit like a sore thumb, and it was definitely nice coming to the United States, where all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm not, you know, this, this random white kid in the middle um, of a bunch of Mexicans. I'm wait a minute, I look like everybody here, and I think part of me really really enjoyed that, just like the subconscious idea that like I people aren't just like honing in on me, they're not just like um I just blend in, and I actually really like that. I think part of me has always hated just standing out or like causing some kind of a ruckus where the spotlight comes on me. I've never really liked that, and I do wonder if it is because I come from a place where I did stand out so much. Um, but I think over time I realized that I don't have to choose. If I'm more Mexican or if I'm more American, because I'm both. At the end of the day, I'm both. In some aspects of my life, I feel more Mexican when it comes to uh, speaking Spanish. I feel more comfortable speaking Spanish, even though I can speak English a lot better. I feel more comfortable speaking Spanish just because I feel like I'm going to say something funny or I'm going to say something weird in English, and people are going to be like, "Why is this kid talking funny?" Whereas in Spanish, I can just like kind of let my tongue loose and express myself the way I want to. And if I make a mistake, it's like, "Oh well, he's white." I kind of have like a little out, in the sense
Hmm.
that, oh, maybe Spanish isn't his first language, but when English is my first language and I start speaking and I start saying things weird, then I don't know. Just another interesting. Maybe it's just a personal thing where I'm not very good at expressing myself in English, but I, yeah, just like I said, in some aspects I feel very like more American, and in others I feel more Mexican. I don't have to choose what I am. I'm both.
Hmm. And because you've kind of had that experience of like maybe feeling like different than everyone else, do you feel like that's helped you be more like cognizant, compassionate, empathetic towards other people that might feel the same?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I've definitely met a lot of people just in my time living in Provo. A lot of people from Latin America um, that don't feel like they either fit the vibe or they fit the mold here in Utah, and or maybe just in the United States in general. And I I just wanted like I get that. I get just like maybe wanting to be able to connect with people here and just not quite knowing how, or maybe just so many different personality differences or different hobbies, different habits that from the things you talk about to like the food you eat feels like it can kind of be a challenge to connect with people there. Um, but yeah, I've definitely seen that. I've definitely seen that. But it just takes it just takes you just have to take the approach where if you want to get along with someone, you can get along with them. You can find something to connect on with someone. It doesn't matter how different you are. Like there will always be something that you guys can talk about, something that you guys can do together where you'll be able to connect. And it doesn't mean you have to like be best friends forever. You have to create this super, super solid friendship forever. But like, I definitely think anybody can be capable of just connecting with someone without having to like um, compromise their own beliefs, compromise their own personality, so to speak.
Mhm. I was thinking about it, and I code switch a lot depending on who I'm talking to. And I think we often have this kind of subconscious thought and belief that people will feel more comfortable around us if we are more like them, or if I at least talk like them, and if I look like them. And I remember as a missionary, like being almost ashamed that I was this white guy trying to learn Spanish and trying to basically assimilate myself into this culture. And I remember I really wanted to like have my Spanish be as perfect as it could be, less gringo as possible. And because I wanted when I spoke, I wanted it to be like a Latino accent. So I worked very hard on that. And a lot of people complimented me on my Spanish, and I realized that a lot of it was like I was just trying to help people feel comfortable when they were talking to me. And then when I'd talk to, Latinos that spoke English, I'd have like a little bit of a, like a Latino
Yeah.
English, like almost like a cholo accent,
Yeah.
a little bit. Or like when I talk to black people, like I'd put a little bit of like flavor on
Yeah.
my accent,
Yeah.
like. And I remember I was talking to this one black lady on her doorstep, and I was like, "Yeah, we're the missionaries from like the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints." And my companion after the contact, he was like, "Dude, what are you doing?" Like that was so cringe. But I think there's like this subconscious belief in us that we need to look like other people. We need to talk and we need to act like other people in order for them to be comfortable around us. And I think that's like true to an extent, but I think sometimes we like, especially people, I don't know, I find in myself, I'm like very much a people pleaser. And I will change a lot of things about myself depending on who I'm around. Like if I'm around people that swear a little bit more, like I want them to know that I don't like judge them for swearing. So I might like throw in like a swear word or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I might swear more around them, because it helps them feel comfortable. Whereas if I'm around people that don't swear, then I don't swear, and so it can be challenging when you're like compromising your own morals to like help other people feel comfortable. And it can also be challenging just constantly feeling like you have to change yourself for other people. And I think what you're talking about is just learning to be confident in who you are and like where you come from and not pretending to be someone else. Like I remember thinking all the time, especially as a Spanish missionary, like I wish I was Latino. I wish I had some claim to the culture, some claim to la raza.
La
you know?
raza. Yeah.
I can't roll my R's, but raza.
Hey, you
Yeah.
got it. You got it.
But yeah, I would even like run through like these pretend scenarios where, oh, what if I was like Chilean, or what if I was Venezuelan but like white? And so it would be like fun to like confuse people all the time. Or what if I'd even, when I was on the mission, like someone told me about the northern Mexican colonies, and so I'd sometimes joke with people that I was from Chihuahua, and stuff like that. And I still sometimes joke and like convince people. There's actually like a friend group that I haven't told them that I was capping about that.
Oh, you should
But,
see how long that lasts.
yeah, there are actually people in Spain from when I lived in Spain that still think I'm Mexican. So yeah. If they're
That's
listening to this,
awesome.
my bad. I'm white.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Come clean on the podcast, man. Come
Yeah.
clean on the podcast.
I'm coming clean. But yeah, I think there's like something really powerful in like learning to just be comfortable in who you are. Because for so long, I wanted to be something that I wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wanted to have a different, more interesting backstory. I didn't want to just be that white missionary from Utah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm from New Jersey, even though I was like 12 when I moved,
Yeah.
because even that was like a little more interesting. But like being comfortable enough in your own skin to know that like it doesn't matter how I look, how I talk, or where I come from. And that's why I think, your spirituality and your relationship with God comes in, and like identifying yourself first and foremost as a child of God.
Yeah.
It's like that's who I am. That's my identity. My identity is a son of God, and every single person is my spiritual brother and sister. And what if, the way you grew up in this tight knit community, what if you were able to treat every single person as if they were from your town? You know?
Yeah, no, I understand I guess you could say the pull or the tendency to want to connect with people and to want to treat them to want to make them feel as comfortable as they can. You know, I think I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that desire. You know, because it comes from a good place, wanting to connect with someone, wanting to make them feel comfortable around you, wanting them to feel like they can trust you. And I think at the end of the day, God wants us to become more united with other people. God wants us to build connections with people. God wants us to make friends. He wants us to serve people, right? He wants us to do all these things that are just going to strengthen relationships. And so as long as that's our goal, I don't think we should beat ourselves up too much about the way that we go about doing that. You know? Like there's a lot of ways to do the same thing, a lot of different ways to do the same thing. And if, changing your accent around certain people helps you to feel more connected with them, and like go for it. I do the same thing all the time. I have a coworker at work, and she has a Cuban accent, and without fail when I'm speaking Spanish to her, my Spanish turns into Cuban, you know? And another experience I had with this was while I was traveling in Spain or living in Spain for a couple of months, and in my time there, I met this guy from England at a hostel, and while we're talking, I'm there with two other friends, and he and I are having a conversation. And my two friends just start laughing in the middle of the conversation, and after this guy from England walks away, I ask my friends why they're laughing, and they say, "Dude, like halfway through that conversation, you just started speaking in a British accent. You just like assimilated his accent." And I was like, I did not even notice that. Like I'm just kind of what you said, trying to do the same thing is just relate to him somehow. Because I think going back to the importance of building connections with people, it's good to find common ground. It's good to find things that both of you understand, that both of you agree with. And I'm not trying to say like you should just agree with everything somebody says if you don't, but I think God has given us different gifts, and He's given us different personality traits that help us to create those connections. And if that personality trait is to have a more chameleon personality where you just kind of adapt to your surroundings and adapt to the people, like I think that's a wonderful thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's where I think like the value of being open. I'm gonna put my leg down because that looks kind of weird. I think the value of just being open to trying new things and open to new experiences. I think that's where that comes in. Like I was interviewing my friend Dallin, and he had invited me to go rock climbing with him, and I didn't. And this was like back in 2022, where he invited me to go with him, and I didn't because it wasn't something that I was like super familiar with. It was outdoor rock climbing specifically, and I was like scared of heights, But I actually did end up going outdoor rock climbing, and I enjoyed it. And now, even though I only went that one time, I meet someone who really enjoys rock climbing, and I at least have that one experience that I can lean back on and I can talk about and connect with. Whereas if I'd never done it, then I wouldn't be able to appreciate it at all. And so just like being open to new experiences, open to trying new things. If someone like wants you to come play Super Smash Bros over at their place and you're not much of a gamer, just like go try it out,
Yeah.
And now because I've tried Super Smash Bros, there are a lot of different people outside of my normal demographic that I would probably hang out, that I'm used to. I would say I can connect with a lot more people because I actually found out I like it.
Yeah.
Even though I'm trash at the game, like I just button mash. But like my friend Caden that I've interviewed twice now, like he really likes Super Smash Bros, and we can talk about it a little bit, and connect in that way. And so just having an open mind and being able to try new things. And I know from like your Instagram posts that you have been a lot of places and tried a lot of new things. So I kind of want to hear your perspective on that.
I think, I think it's extremely hard for God to guide you if you're not constantly putting yourself out there to have new experiences. I have a lot of people that are close to me who they have a lot of different beliefs, and one of them is, or someone really close to me, he is really drawn to Buddhism and Taoism, Confucianism, just a lot of like ancient Eastern religions or belief systems. And one belief system that keeps coming up in general, not only with this friend, but with a lot of people around me, is the idea of just letting life flow like a river and just like trusting the process of life and trusting how the way that life plays out and just being able to accept, the things that come your way. And to an extent, I really do believe that we need to learn to trust the process, to trust the direction our life is going in. But that only works if we're constantly pursuing other things, if we're constantly setting goals, because it's in the pursuit of goals that God is able to guide us towards better things, to greater things. So I can't tell you how many times I've had a plan for my life and then just seen it take a completely different turn from like one day to the next. But then finding that second path that my life took me on to be way better and exactly what I needed. A lot of people I think can relate, when their life takes a drastic turn, they can look back and realize, oh wait, this is exactly what I needed. Because if I had made the other decision, or if my life had gone a different way, I'd be a completely different person, or I don't think I would be quite as happy. And so along that same vein, I fully believe that if we just give our life to God and just say, all right, I have all these plans. I know you probably have something in store for me that's a little bit different, but just help me to accept what those plans are going to be. Because I know that you know what's best for me. I might think I know what's best for me right now. I'm only 24 years old. I think I know where I want my life to go, but I know that maybe in 5 years, I'm going to have a completely different idea of where I want my life to be. So just please help me to get to where I'll be happiest. But the only way that, God can guide your life is if you're in the pursuit of something so that he can steer you. And so when it comes to new experiences and finding new experiences, that's when I've seen God's hand the most in my life, where I've tried something new. So God was able to put me in the path of this person who ended up changing my life in such a drastic way. Or I wanted to, let's say go to a party or go play video games with someone. And at that party, we're playing those video games. I met somebody who was able to introduce me to someone where I have the job I have now. And I've just found that putting myself out there, whether it's in a situation I'm not quite as comfortable in, getting out of my comfort zone, I guess, so to speak, that's when I see God's hand the most. And so that's why I love to travel. That's why I love to get out of my comfort zone, because that's when God can work with my life the most, if that makes sense.
Dude, that was awesome. That was super cool to hear. I think it'd be cool to have both of us kind of share our experiences living in Spain.
Yeah.
Because that's something we have in common. So for reference, back in 2021 during fall semester, I decided to just move all my classes to online and go to Spain with my friend Cheeto. Shout out Cheeto if you're listening to this. Cheeto Bastidas. And so we just lived in his dad's old apartment that he grew up in. His dad grew up in Valencia, and we just kind of had this apartment to ourselves. And we walked to the grocery store, walked with our groceries back to the apartment. We rode the bus. We did all these, and we lived like locals for like this, 2 months basically. And I remember when we were planning about this trip and we were telling people about it, we were like really hyping it up. Like, this is going to be incredible. This is going to be amazing. Like, I'm so stoked. And honestly, it was like one of the coolest things I've ever done. I'm so glad that I did it. But there were a lot of like experiences that I wasn't expecting. Like times where we couldn't understand the bus system. Even we're both operating in our second language, and some of the bus intercom is like in Catalan, or not Catalan. It was in Valenciano, and we're like, it's kind of like Spanish, but kind of mixed with French. It's like weird.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not weird. It's different than what we're used to. And so we'd like miss our bus stop and like be completely lost, or we were trying to find someone's apartment and we were just completely lost. And there were conflicts that we had, as living together for that long, and differences in opinion of places we wanted to go and visit. And, fortunately, Cheeto and I have been able to, 2.5 years later, look back on it and reflect and kind of make amends in that way. But it did affect our relationship for a while. And so there were just like a lot of things that I didn't foresee, a lot of struggles and a lot of like hardships. I don't know if you kind of had the same experience. Maybe yours was just like, Disneyland the whole time. I don't know. But
No, I wish. It definitely wasn't sunshine and rainbows.
sunshine and rainbows. That's what I was
Is that
looking
the
for.
word?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I remember the night before I went to the airport, I was like second guessing everything. I was like, am I really about to move to a different country by myself? Don't know a single person. The only person I've talked to in this country was my internship sponsor over one video call. I had no idea what I was getting into. I'd never lived in this country before. All I knew is I'm meeting my landlord Saturday at noon, and I'm starting work Monday at 10 a.m. I have an address to get into downtown Madrid. Let's see where this goes. And definitely for the first little while, it was a struggle trying to navigate, like you said, the transit system, trying to navigate a new internship, a new position, surrounded by people that just seemed a little intimidating, quite frankly, just because of how
European.
Yeah, that's the European. I guess just qualified for the work that they were doing.
Yeah, we're just joking. We're not
We love
bashing on
Europeans.
Europeans.
We do.
Yeah. You guys are a little serious though sometimes, so it is a little intimidating. But
Yeah,
that's okay.
we're
It's all love.
we're used to more Latino joking around type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But it was a lot to take in. It was pretty overwhelming. And since I was there by myself, I didn't know anyone, and it was like pretty lonely, to be honest. When your only friends are like these 45-year-old Spaniards that live an hour away, and you only see them at work. But luckily, I was able to get connected with the church congregation there, and I was able to meet a lot of really really cool people. And from there, I ended up making some really really good friends that I've seen since coming back from Spain, and I know we'll be friends for a long time. And they it was an adjustment, and just thinking about it, it's kind of hard to put into words everything that was going on in my life at the time. But more than anything, I found it to be an extremely spiritually enlightening experience. Like, I had some of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had, and they came, during some more difficult times, but they came while I was, trying new things and not experimenting, but putting myself in different situations. And coming home, I feel a lot more confident in my ability to just adapt. But also, I feel a lot more confident in my faith, which is something that I did not expect. And so, coming home from Spain, I'm always thinking about, okay, like what are the big reasons why I was able to go? Like it was an incredible opportunity that, if God hadn't like been over it, I definitely would not have been able to go, given all the different resources you need to get over there. And so I knew it felt like a gift from God going to Spain. So I knew He needed me to be there. And coming home, seeing how much it increased my own relationship with Him and Jesus Christ, I realized that's exactly where I needed to be. But it kind of surprised me to learn that the reason I went was more spiritual than I had imagined. You know.
Mm. No, I love that, man. I I wish that I could have another experience like that because I mean I've traveled within the United States since then. I've gone to a lot of national parks. I've been to Yosemite. I've been to Glacier National Park. I've been to the Tetons. I've been to the Grand Canyon, and it's been cool to like go to these cool places and get to know the Western United States a little bit better. And I really value and appreciate that time. Um, but there's something about going somewhere completely different, getting outside of that comfort zone, and like not just being a tourist, but trying to live like a local.
Yeah.
And like trying to completely like immerse yourself in that culture. And I think that's why the mission is so cool too. Um, Even though I was in the States, like Arkansas is a different world than New Jersey
Oh,
and
I'm
Utah,
sure.
you know? And so really just trying to become one with the people and love the people. And in terms of like turning outward, having that openness to experience and being willing to expand who you are. Because I think what we've been talking about with new experiences, going new places, meeting new people, it adds to your person. It adds to your spirit in a way. And it helps, it literally just expands you as a person in a very literal way that's like so cool, you know? And, I want another one of those experiences. Like, one of my dreams, and you and I have talked about this, is like, I just want to go like tour through all of Mexico. Like, I watched this one dude on TikTok or on Instagram. I don't have TikTok. But he just biked all the way from like Alaska to Argentina and like the southernmost point, northernmost point in Alaska, the southernmost point in Argentina. And he said that biking was so cool because, when you're in a car, you're kind of only with the people in your car. When you're biking, like you're among a bunch of people and you get to see every inch of the road, every inch of the journey, and you stop and you talk to people. And he met so many people along the way, and so many people were like, "What are you doing?" And it was like a conversation starter for him. And a lot of people had like pity on him, like he's like this 18-year-old kid that's just like biking in the mountains of Mexico in the summer, like
Yeah.
like just like not enough water, so people would stop and like give him water and stuff. And then that was a conversation, and a lot of people showed him hospitality in that way. And it was like the same thing as a missionary, like, knocking doors on 105-degree heat in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, you know, maybe they're not receptive to your message or what you're trying to share, but they're like, "Do y'all need water?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, yeah. Can we pray with y'all real quick?"
Yeah.
And then you just like meet people where they are. And, it's not about like trying to convert them or trying to like convince them that your way of life or way of thinking is better, but it's like you're just having experiences with children of God and just trying to relate to them in a deeper and a more connected way. And that's where I think like the beauty of life comes in, and that's what the true spirit of turn outward is.
I agree, man. I think there's something really, really fulfilling or really feeling about simple conversations with new people. It reminds me of an experience I had about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Actually, I was meeting some friends at this Vietnamese barbecue, Korean barbecue restaurant, something like that. And I got there a little bit early. I was going to meet them there. And as I'm driving into the parking lot, I see this Hispanic couple working on the building next door. They're renovating. And the thought crosses my mind, go talk to these people. And I'm like, sure, okay. I love talking to Hispanic people. It's kind of random, you know. I don't know how I'm going to start a conversation with them, but I'll walk over, see what happens. So I park the car, and the restaurant still isn't open yet. So I just start walking over to this couple, and the man says something to me. I can't even remember what he says to me, but it strikes a conversation between the two of us. And we just start talking. I start learning about where they come from. You know, he's from Ecuador, his wife's from Mexico, and they start telling me about this new carnitas place, this new shredded pork place that has opened up downtown. One of their best friends sells pork there, and I was like, "Wow, that sounds awesome! You should tell me where this is at." And they're like, "Yeah, like totally." Like they gave me the address and everything, and the wife just goes, I have some right now. Do you want a taco?" And I'm like, "Sure." I'm so hungry right now. I love a taco. So I sit down and I'm just eating tacos with this random couple and just having a great conversation with them. You know, nothing like monumental came from it other than the fact that I just got to, you know, connect with two people out of nowhere. And so we left on good, you know, great terms, and I met up with my friends, had lunch again. But it's, to me, it's really interesting how if you pay attention to those thoughts, to pay attention to just different ideas that come to your mind, you can just meet people and have a great experience. It doesn't have to be some life-changing thing, but it's just small conversations every day that bring, you know, that sense of connection with the people around you.
And you also might get tacos out
And
of
you
it.
might get some tacos. You never
But
know.
that's a W all
You
around.
never know, man. You
Come
might
on,
get
man.
some
Dude,
tacos.
you just, man, I need tacos now, bro.
Go talk to some people on the street.
Are we
They
going to
might
go
give you
get tacos after
Dude,
this?
you know we're gonna get tacos after
Dude,
this.
actually, we probably will.
We probably
Man, it reminds me of the scripture that Jesus says to his disciples. He's like, take no thought what you shall eat or drink, you know, for the Lord will provide, right?
Yeah.
You know, if a lily is like arrayed and cared for, right? If the birds of the field are provided for, you know, how much your heavenly Father has, you know, has you in mind and in thought, right? And I'm obviously butchering that and paraphrasing it, but
Oh no, it was perfect.
you know, I think when we're truly involved in our purpose, like so much of our day-to-day stress is involved in work, and it's involved in making money and putting food on the table, making sure our family is there. I think when we're truly living in our spirit and we're living in the spirit of turn outward and like wanting to be directed to the place where we're needed to be, suddenly like it takes a little bit of that burden off of our shoulders. And that's the true meaning of faith, is understanding that those things are going to be provided for us. All we need to do is just be willing to be led and guided and have faith in a higher power.
And I think that allows you to become a lot more present as a person too. You know, one of my best friends, my cousin, shout out to Cameron. I don't know if she's gonna be listening to this, but one of her favorite words right now is abundance, and just living in abundance. And what that basically means is just trusting that your needs will be provided for as long as you're pursuing good things and you're doing great things. You know, it's not to say that like, oh, I'm going to have a lot of money and I'm going to be able to buy the cars or the things I need, but I'll always have enough for my needs. And it's going off that scripture. It's taking no thought beforehand of what you should do or eat, something like that, right? Because you're right, it does take a lot of stress off of worrying about the future quite as much. And like it's healthy to be stressed, right? It's healthy. There's healthy stress. There's unhealthy stress. But if you are constantly living either in the past, there's a chance you're going to be living with a lot of regret. And if you're constantly living in the future, you're probably going to be living with a lot of anxiety. That's something that I deal with, is always thinking about the future, and it brings a lot of worry. And I forget to just like enjoy my life now and to enjoy what's happening to me right now, and to trust in that abundance, to trust that things are going to work out, and to have that faith, you know, to trust the process, to trust God that He is guiding you. And for whatever reason, for me personally, just being able to live in the present allows me to be more focused on the people around me. It allows me to have a better work-life balance where like I can leave my work at work. I can have my friends at home, have my home life. I just can better separate different aspects of my life when I just say, all right, this is out of my control. Trust the process and let God take care of the things that I can't handle. You know, it just takes off a weight for sure.
Hmm. No, I appreciate you sharing that because I've really, over the last couple of years, I've kind of had this mindfulness revolution. Um, when we were in the same ward back in Provo, I got a Headspace subscription and I was meditating like every day. I've been really bad at it recently, so I need to get back into it. But meditation and mindfulness, what it did for me is it increased and enhanced the connection between my mind and my body. A thing I often share, and hopefully in further episodes, we have some really cool guests lined up. We can talk more about this. But in terms of like healing and wellness, there are really like three categories that you need to like focus on healing and then focus on maintaining health. And that's in your mind, your body, and your spirit, right? Because a lot of times people will only try and take care of one at a time. You know, they might be experiencing anxiety and depression and they're like, I'm going to therapy, like I'm doing all these, you know, these things, I'm trying to help. It's like, okay, therapy helps with your mind. You know, what are you doing to take care of your body? What are you doing to heal your body and to heal your spirit, you know? And therapy is a good start, but it's just you need those some branches that can connect the three. And so mindfulness has definitely been a way to connect the mind and the body in a lot better way. I think you mentioned you brought up grounding techniques. And for me, it was really helpful. I worked with troubled teenagers for about 2 years, and it was a stressful environment. It was really difficult. And when I was kind of in the height of my meditation phase, it was really helpful for me to, you know, I'd get in the car after work and I'd do some breathing techniques, you know, just like take some really deep breaths, like, and just kind of like, oh, even just doing that now, like makes me feel good. But it just helps you like get back into your body, you know, get out of your mind and to like ground you into the present moment. And to realize like, okay, like I'm transitioning from one part of my day into the another, and I don't need to take work home with me. Because for a long time when I was really stressed out with work and I was fighting with the kids, and I got to a point where I was kind of like having emotional outbursts with the kids because I wasn't really taking care of myself in the way that I should. You know, when I was able to have those days where I really compartmentalized and I was able to ground myself before transitioning, I wasn't bringing work home. You know, I'd have something stressful or difficult happen at work, but it's like, I'm going to ground myself here onto the next. And I found that when I do that, you know, I'd both do grounding techniques and prayer as I was transitioning throughout my day. That helps me transition both my body and my spirit. And I feel like, hopefully I don't sound too like cuckoo or zen.
Not at all, bro.
You know, I know you're good on that end, but maybe someone listening is like, yo, this dude's a hippie or something. I don't know. But it really helped me transition like both of those aspects. You know, I do some breathing exercises to get my body caught up, right? And then I do, you know, I'd say some prayer like, hey, God, grateful I was able to go to work today. Grateful that I was able to make some money to help provide for myself, to help pay rent and pay for food. Now as I transition into the rest of my day, I pray that you'll be with me, that you'll bless me, that you'll give me opportunities to reach outward to other people and to bless their lives and to be a light and an influence, you know? And so, you know, doing both of those exercises, like in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm finally off work. So I didn't need to do as much with my mind, right? But catching my body and my spirit up made a ton of difference to where I wasn't like bringing stuff home anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people struggle is kind of compartmentalizing those different aspects of their lives.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. I've definitely seen that in myself. It's, you know, I think thoughts are extremely important in the sense that typically what we think comes to fruition in our reality. Like if we're, you know, constantly telling ourselves that we're, you know, terrible at learning a new language, that we're never going to learn Spanish. If we're trying to learn Spanish, for example, chances are we're not going to learn that language. We're going to hold ourselves back. You know, thoughts are a really powerful thing, but they're also extremely addictive. It's really hard to like tell yourself to stop thinking a certain way. And sometimes when we're, you know, we're overwhelmed with work or we're overwhelmed with school and we're trying to compartmentalize, it can be hard to like keep our focus on what we're doing in front of us and to keep our minds from always going back to like maybe the stressful things that are happening at work and being able to do that compartmentalization. And so in that regard, I'm reminded of one of my favorite scriptures in the Book of Mormon. I can't remember the whole scripture nor where it is, but it talks a lot about watching our thoughts. And I love that scripture
You
because
think about like Alma 17, like pray always and watch continuously.
it might be somewhere around there. I wish I could pull it up real quick. But it's become one of my favorite scriptures because for me to watch my thoughts literally means kind of take a step outside of myself and analyze why I'm thinking a certain way so that I can get to the root of maybe this negative thought process that I'm having. And it's obviously it's a lot easier said than done. You know, just change your thoughts and it'll change your it'll change the way you feel. Easier said than done. But I've found that finding one thing to focus on, especially when it comes to, or especially Jesus Christ, everything else just seems to line up. And I don't understand how it works, but if it's really hard for me to focus one day, or if I'm feeling really overwhelmed, feeling extra stressed out, if you can focus on Christ, it kind of can put you into this more relaxed, this more meditative state to where you are able to compartmentalize your life and to balance your life out a little bit more. It's almost like you're given this capacity to think the way you want to think and to feel the way you want to feel when you put Christ at the forefront of your thoughts. You know, I don't know if that made any sense.
No,
but
it made me think of the scripture. I think it's in the New Testament. It says, therefore you must watch and pray always.
Yeah.
And as you were saying that, I was like, well, you can liken that to watch is like watch your thoughts, be mindful.
Yeah.
Right? Pray always. Be mindful in a spiritual sense.
Yeah.
Right? Always. And when I was on my mission, my dad sent me an email that really impacted me. He's like, I've been trying to better keep my covenant to always remember Christ. That's part of the covenant that we make with Christ, is to always remember him. And I'm not perfect yet, but I think I'm getting better, because the other day I was in the grocery store just pushing my cart and I thought of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And it was just like so wholesome
Yeah.
and like good. And even just like turning our thoughts to Christ. Like there's so much parallel between mindfulness and always remembering Christ. Because in mindfulness, they teach you you're inevitably going to be distracted. Like even the most seasoned monk, you know, they are pretty good at like focusing and, you know, but every once in a while, even they will have distracting thoughts. But the way that you get better, the way that you do a mental rep, so to speak, or a mental push-up, is as soon as you become aware that you've become distracted, then you just gently ground yourself again in either your breathing or in whatever the focus of your meditation is, right? And so it's gently bringing it back to that core and center. And it's actually in the act of noticing and then bringing it back that's where you get better, not at like constantly just like holding out and, oh my gosh, if I lost attention, then I'm doing it bad. No, it's like that's actually how you get better at it.
Yeah.
And so it's the same with Jesus Christ and like trying to follow him. It's like you're inevitably going to get caught up in the world. You're inevitably going to lose perspective and lose sight on certain things, and you're going to allow certain things to get to you and stress you out. But the moment that you become aware of like, I'm in my mind and my mind is in the world, then you just gently move it back to Jesus Christ and refocus on him. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And that in itself is helping you become more Christ-like.
No, I totally agree. I think for me, Christ represents a fresh breath of air, and amidst life and its monotony and just the stresses and the overwhelming, amidst everything that brings some kind of negative emotion into life, I found that Christ somehow can just do like a factory reset on my brain if I let him. And what I mean by that is like sometimes I'll develop this negative thought process that just becomes really detrimental to my personality, where it's like I'm starting to think this way, or I'm starting to think this way about myself, or I'm starting to think this about certain people. And because of my own assumptions about other people, then I don't, maybe I don't give them the benefit of the doubt quite as much, or I just judge them a little bit more harshly. And the more you think this way, the less you realize that you're actually having these thoughts. Um, and so I love that you use the word focus. That really has become one of my favorite words, is because if we can focus on good things, and like the scriptures say, all good things come from Christ. If we can focus on good things, then all of a sudden God can kind of show us like, hey, if you start, thinking this way, or start changing your thoughts to look at a situation like this, like you're going to feel a little bit better. You're going to have like more joyful emotions. You're going to feel more relaxed. You're not going to have to worry so much about what's happening around you and what other people are doing and their decisions, but you'll just be able to like kind of analyze it, maybe observe it, learn from it, and just let it go, not let things that don't matter get to you too hard. And that all starts with just focusing on Jesus Christ. He's a great thought to have, and it's hard to
Yeah.
have that thought all the time, every day. But like you said, you're doing the reps, and the more you do it, the more you practice it. It's like your brain will just be hardwired to automatically think of Christ.
Yeah.
Rather than 4 or 5 days go by and you're like, I haven't thought of Jesus yet. The more you think about him, the more automatic it becomes, and the more you're able to kind of recenter, reground yourself. That's kind of like the influence Christ has had on my life. When people ask me about, why I do believe in Jesus Christ, it is because of the drastic difference I feel in my day to day, and the drastic paradigm shift, perspective change that I have when I think about Christ. I see myself completely differently, and I see other people completely differently, and that to me is just evidence of the reality of who he is and his ability to change you and to change the way you see the world around you.
So cool, man. I was thinking about the word focus in the literal sense of the word. I just got these like new webcams, and they're pretty awesome. I love them. They're nice, and so that's kind of why I have it on the brain. But they're supposedly shoot 4K. Hopefully this comes out in 4K for those watching this. But like you think about like a camera lens, right? When it focuses, there's a specific point that becomes more clear and more defined, and the things behind it or on the outside become less defined, right? Become a little more blurry and a little more fuzzy, right? And so when our focus is on Christ, everything outside of him just becomes a little bit more blurry and fuzzy because he is clearly defined and seen, right? And so you're talking about that paradigm, that perspective shift. It's like we can get so caught up in things and circumstances in our lives that are stressing us out, that are making us worry. What's going to happen with my internship? What's going to happen? Am I going to get the kind of job that I want? Am I going to be able to provide for a family? Am I ever going to find my future wife?
Yeah.
Because it's been forever, You and I have talked about this a lot recently,
Yeah.
It's a big stressor for both of us, right? Um, But like when we shift our focus to following Jesus Christ, following Jesus Christ isn't a means to an end of finding our future wife. Right?
Yeah.
When our intention is truly pure and like following Christ, that is the end.
Yeah.
And like if I meet a really cool girl that's gonna help me come unto Christ even more, then that's just icing on the cake. But like Christ is the end goal. He is the end all be all. He is the focus. Rather than my desires and everything, that's when everything changes. President Nelson, the prophet of our church, he says the joy we feel in our lives has little to do with the circumstances of our lives and has everything to do with the focus in our lives.
I love that.
And our focus is in Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And when we focus on Jesus Christ, everything else just tends to fall into place, I know we're still young, you're 26, I'm only 24. Like we got a whole life ahead of us, but I think we can both agree that just in the last, couple of years, we've both seen a lot of things line up the way that they needed to and the way that it benefited the most. And there's actually this phrase that has been kind of on repeat in my mind for about 2 years now. It's kind of like a spiritual experience I'll share. But I was at Brigham Young University. I was on campus in one of the buildings in August of 2022, around there. And I was just sitting down working on an assignment or working on some application, something on my laptop. And at this point in time, a lot of things in my life had completely changed. A lot of my plans, a lot of my expectations for my life had just completely taken a 180-degree turn. So there was a lot of uncertainty. And while I'm sitting at my laptop, this phrase just vividly pops into my head. And it was, "Don't you think I'll give you what'll make you happiest?" And it like kind of took me by surprise. I was like, looked around for a little bit. I was like, where did that come from? Right in the middle of me doing something completely unrelated to what, completely unrelated to what was going on in my life. And so immediately I was like, I gotta write this down. So I like wrote down the letters and made it into like an acronym. It's like DYT, something like that. Don't you think I'll give you what'll make you happiest? And at the same time, I just felt like this pressure release of like, you know what? I don't have to worry. I can give all my worries to God. All the things that are outside my control, like there's no point in worrying about them. I can just put those on the altar, so to speak, on the altar of, I won't say the altar of sacrifice, but I'll say just put your worries on the altar and let God handle them. Because when something's out of your control, worrying and stressing about it is really not going to do you any good. So as long as you're, working towards good things, as long as you're putting Christ at the forefront of your mind, he can lead you to what is going to make you happiest in the end. Because I don't know what's going to make me happy in 5-10 years. I see all these people going through, their midlife crises or their existential crises at, 30, 40, 50. And it's not to say I'm not going to go through the same thing, but my goal in life is just to let God take me to where he knows I'll be the happiest. Because I don't really know where that is. I don't know what that's going to look like at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But he knows me perfectly. And that's in and of itself is a way for me to just take the stresses off, put it on the altar, let him take care of it. Because I don't know, I guess I trust him to lead me to whatever will make me happiest.
Yeah. Man, that resonates with me so much because there have been a lot of points in my life where I'm so convinced that something will make me happy, whether that's getting a girlfriend, getting a specific kind of girlfriend, or having, a specific friend group and having a lot of people in my life that kind of hype me up and, make me feel really great about myself all the time. And I've had those things at different times in my life. And I can say that, like, all those things, like, didn't necessarily make me happy. Like, happiness in and of itself, like, if the goal is just happiness, like, happiness is is very fleeting. And like you said, the things that we think make us happy change very quickly. Like what we think we want now might change. And a lot of times when I've gotten the things that I thought would make me happy, like it wasn't it. I remember like being really insecure about how skinny I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lifted weights like crazy when I was in college. And I finally got to this point where I had like my dream body, so to speak. Like I was really, like 210 pounds, like pretty shredded, did a lot of cardio, did like a lot of weights. And people would tell me I had this amazing physique, but it was never enough for me. Like I had body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be like a little bit bigger, and like when I got a little bit bigger, then I was like, oh, now I'm too bulky, and I don't like how I look in group photos because I'm just like this bulky dude that stands out,
Yeah.
ironically. And like when I was shorter, I didn't grow until later in high school. I was really insecure about how short I was, and I'm 6'2.5" now. And now sometimes I'll look at myself in photos where I'm taller than everyone else, and I'll feel like embarrassed or ashamed of how I stick out, And so there's so many things that we think will make us happier. Like, oh, if I was just taller, or if I just had more money, or if I just had a girlfriend, or if I had this like trophy wife or whatever, then that would make me happy. And it's so fleeting. Like, there's a J. Cole song I really like, Love Yours.
Maybe if I heard it.
Yeah, it's a great song. But towards the end of the song, he says, and I'm going to paraphrase here because he uses some swear words and stuff, but he's basically said there's always going to be a bigger house on the block. There's always going to be like a cooler car. There's always going to be a hotter girl. But you're never going to be happy until you love yours.
Yeah.
It's the end of the song.
Yeah.
And like learning to appreciate what you have and what God has given you and just the wonder of the ordinary. We're always chasing the highs. We're always chasing the extraordinary in our society. We've become bored with just what is ordinary. And until social media, we need like shock value. We need something. We need to see like a fight or a rap battle online, or drama and conflict and the Twitter fights and the political polarization and drama that's all in society, because we're bored with the ordinary and we've lost a sense of wonder in our lives. Like just the fact that you and I exist, like our bodies are billions, trillions of cells. Our brains are like, it's still like science can't even explain the human brain because of how complex it is. It's incredible. Like you and I are just like living, breathing, walking miracles. And the fact that there's like a big fireball in the sky that like gives us warmth, and we're exactly in the right position in the galaxy so that we don't freeze to death, but that we don't get like engulfed in a ball of flame.
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible. Like that is a daily miracle that we take for granted, and we're constantly looking for like extraordinary miracles in our lives, and we're forgetting the everyday miracles.
I love that you said the word wonder. That's been one of my favorite words too. One of my best friends and I, we were having a lot of conversations a couple months ago about how to like increase the feeling of awe in our lives. It's awe's like, it's kind of a hard word to describe, but I mean, essentially, if you've ever been in a situation where something is just blowing your mind and you can't wrap your head around it, whether it's like a crazy sunset or it's a crazy view or a crazy catch at a football game, or, anything that just like blows your mind and just takes away your ability to describe what you're feeling because it's just so marvelous, I guess you could say. We're trying to figure out that sense of awe and how to bring it back more into even a gospel setting, being more in awe of God, being more in awe of the creations around us. And I listened to a podcast almost a year ago about this psychologist that had studied awe his entire life, and he believed that he had figured out a technique to help people bring in this sense that then leads to a sense of purpose. And it was a very, very simple practice. But he said that every day, if you spend 1 minute just contemplating something extremely, something you trying to I can't talk right now, trying to comprehend something that seems incomprehensible. So whether that's like what you were saying, the sun being able to warm us, or just finding different and thinking about different parts of our life that we can't truly understand, and just thinking about it, taking a minute to be like, wow, I can breathe right now, and like feeling the breath come through your lungs, and feeling like, the thoughts come through your mind, and just analyzing these really, really simple things. And that practice always turned my mind back towards God and back towards his creations. And then again, it's that focus, man. Whatever we choose to focus on, that's where we're going to be led,
What you said reminded me of a specific post I saw on Instagram. So I was trying to pull it up real quick.
Oh yeah.
But there's this group on Instagram. They have a page. It's just We Love You. I don't know if you follow them, but they're kind of like these nature hippie dudes, and they post like this really wholesome content about like getting out in nature and like, forgetting about like technology and all the the cares of like modern life and society, and like discovering that childlike sense of wonder again. And I wish I could find the specific post, but basically someone commented on one of their posts, and it was actually the comment that really impacted me. They said, like, anyone can love the beautiful or the extraordinary, but it's beautiful to love the ordinary.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes something special to love the ordinary. There's an episode of Bluey. Do you know the kid show Bluey?
I've heard of it. I've been hearing it a lot lately, actually.
Dude, you gotta, like, I will watch this kid show by myself sometimes. Like, it's so
Is that good?
It's like these little like animated dogs that have these cute little Australian accents, and I just love that show to pieces.
Eating it up.
I was actually on a date like a few weeks ago, and we were watching episodes of Bluey. I was like, you got to see this show; it's so good. And the girl liked it. So,
Oh, good.
But yeah, we watched this episode where the dad was like pretending that he was born yesterday. They played this game called Born Yesterday,
Okay.
and then because it started off like, of course I know that I wasn't born yesterday, and then the kids are like, let's play a game that you were born yesterday, and so the dad's like running around like talking to random people and be like, you guys see that big fireball in the sky? Isn't that crazy? And like all these things, and they're like, Dad, you can't do that. That's weird. He's like, why is it weird? I don't get it. And he's like, just trust us. You were born yesterday. And because at the beginning of the show, their mom was trying to get them to do something, and they were like, why should we do it? And like, just trust me, I wasn't born yesterday,
Yeah.
And so it kind of came full circle where the kids realized, oh, like, if he really were born yesterday, then he really would have to trust us because we've lived longer than he has.
Yeah.
And so that's how it goes back into parenting. But going towards the end of the episode, the dad's just like staring at this leaf, and he like looks at this leaf until like he sees like the cells, like the individual cells, and just like keeps zooming in, and he's just like, whoa.
That's awesome.
It was just so cool. And like, I don't know, even looking at this leaf over here is just like, whoa, that thing's alive.
Pretty nice leaf.
Yeah, it is a nice
me.
leaf. That one's a fake one. That tree over
we'll
there.
still appreciate it. It's all
But that's still amazing. I mean, someone made that out of plastic or
a
whatever.
little piece of art.
Yeah, I wish we could like turn the webcam around and
Show everybody so they could appreciate it with us.
Yeah, maybe we can show them a little 360 view of the room here. All right. Oh no, never mind.
Didn't turn all the way.
No, it didn't. That's sad. All right. Well, we tried.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry, guys. I guess I know the extent of my webcams now.
Yeah, I know. We're like learning new
But
things about this as we go.
yeah, man. Um, but yeah, maybe we'll edit that out. No, we'll keep it in. It's an authentic moment. Um, but yeah, man, just like finding the beauty in the ordinary and in the living things and just what's already there in your environment. So cool. And it's really cool to like have experiences of these where we talk about these, and I feel like I always focus on it for like a few days and then I go back into the same mode of thinking.
Yeah.
Do you have any practices or any advice for like staying in that sense of wonder and awe?
I mean, it's impossible to be perfectly consistent. And it is really easy to forget. That's something that's really been on my mind recently is how easy it is to forget things that used to bring you joy, or things that used to bring you that sense of awe, things that used to make you feel closer to God, even different practices, different things you used to do. And I think it just takes a lot of trying new things and trying to figure out what works best for you and not result what's the word, not falling back on the same things that
Resorting.
not resorting to do the same things that you've always done to bring you certain emotions, because we're always changing. We talked about, we don't know what's going to make us happy in 5 years. We don't know what our personalities are going to be like. So I think it's just kind of like this constant journey of figuring out what things are going to bring you those senses. When I was 16, for example, music used to sound amazing to me. Like I remember discovering music for the first time when I was 16 years old and like listening to Borns, listening to John Bellion for the
They
first
don't have
time.
music down in Mexico.
No, no, we don't have music. But discovering like good music, and I just remember
You just triggered all the Mexicans. They're like, "What about banda, bro?
they're like,
Come on."
"Where Los Tigres del Norte, way? Like, where are they?"
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, man. I just John Bellion, Quinn,
Yeah.
they're where it's at. But just remembering how powerful music felt to me back then, and how I like craved it. I craved looking for music on Fridays because I knew that that's when Spotify was like going to come out with the new songs, and I looked forward to that every week. And I feel like when I was 16, it was a lot easier for me to find music that fulfilled me in that sense. And now it's a lot harder for me to find songs that I like. That was 8 years ago. I've changed a lot. And so I don't get the same satisfaction, I guess, from music that I used to. And so now I've had to like change my style of music, change the things that I change my tastes, I guess, a little bit. But it's taken a lot of rediscovering what habits are going to lead me to where I want to be. And even my spirituality, like the way I pray, like that has changed so much in the last 8 years since I was 16. It used to be a very generic prayer that used to be enough for me. But now my prayers are like, I get on my knees and I say, like, I'll start out my prayer very formal and I'll say something along the lines of like, Father in heaven, and like, thank you so much for this day. Thank you. And then I stop myself and I'm like, I'm sorry, God. Today's been a horrible day. Like, I cannot, like, I just do not want to deal with things. Honestly, I don't even want to pray right now. Like, I am so exhausted and so frustrated with life. And I like have changed the way that I pray to fit my needs, I guess, if that makes sense. So it's been a lot of like rediscovering what hobbies, or not hobbies, what habits are going to bring me back to that fulfillment. So I wouldn't say there's like this one size fit all, like do this every day and it's going to lead to this, but I think it requires a lot of flexibility. And like we should always be able to rely on the simple things. We should always be able to rely on the things that we know are going to bring us closer to God, or that we know are going to bring us that sense of fulfillment. But I think as we grow and as we change and as our minds, you know, continue to change, we also need to find different ways that bring us closer to the things we love.
Dude, I I totally related to what you said about discovering music thing, though, even though I like kind of roasted you for it.
Nah, you're
But
good.
no, I got Spotify when I was like 17. Like I didn't have my own music account. Like I had iTunes, but like each song was like $1.25.
Oh yeah.
So like
You're not about
it
to drop
was
$1.25 on a song.
yeah, I was I'd get like an iTunes gift card for Christmas, so like once a year I'd be able to get like 12 songs. So
Oh
like
yeah.
it was limited. But I remember like I finally my junior year of high school, I got an iPhone for Christmas and I started getting a Spotify subscription. And I think I just used my mom's debit card without ever telling her. So I was a great kid, but
Oh, yeah.
I used it to pay for the premium subscription, and then I just canceled when I went on my mission. Um, but no, it wasn't my mom's. It was actually mine. I used my gas money. That's what I did. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I wasn't okay.
He
I need to
wasn't thieving
clarify
from your
that.
mom. You weren't
Need to-
thieving from your mom.
Need to clear my name a little bit on that. Okay, I wasn't stealing from my mama. But dude, I just remember like I was in high school. I loved Imagine Dragons.
Yeah.
Like even like up until 2015, 2016, I was still on Night Visions, like their 2012 album. And it's just like, Radioactive never got old for me. Like, man, I love their song, like every song on that album. Like Tokyo, there was their song River. I love their song The River. Just like, oh, so good. And it just hit me in my dome, bro. And then they came out with that other album. Can't remember what it's called, but it's the one with I'm So Sorry. And they had this song called I Was Me. And it's like this really nostalgic song where it's like the photographs remind me of who I used to be when I was me.
Yeah.
And I was like 17 years old, like feeling nostalgic. Like I haven't even seen the world or really discovered who I am yet. But I'm like, I miss who I used to be.
For real though.
But like, yeah, dude, music just used to hit different. And like the first time I heard All Time Low by John Bellion,
Ooh.
like you felt like you were
2016,
like,
man.
you felt like you were like gonna like turn into Iron Man or something. You're like, I'm just gonna like
Like,
power
what's happening
up
to
or
me right now,
something.
man?
Yeah, just hit different, and it is just cool how innocent you were, and I loved what you said about prayer because I think that's where it all starts. It all starts with like relying on a higher power because in and of ourselves, if we rely on that flesh, if we rely on that natural man, we are going to become numb to stimuli around us.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna become old and dull and boring. But we can truly pray and ask God to renew our spirit, to help us see the world in a new way. There's even this quote by C.S. Lewis where he's like, Christ must continually reveal himself unto us
Yeah.
in a way to where our old conceptions of who we thought Christ was are shattered to make way for a new vision of who he is.
I love that.
And so we're continually coming to know Christ in a deeper and more true and more profound way. And it starts with like the way that we pray. Like when I'm desperate, I'll share a story here.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So speaking of desperate, my dating life. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
No, it's not about that. It could be though, because there's a lot of there's some desperation. So I don't know if you're listening to the pod, hit me up. No, I'm just playing.
Pray for my boy. Pray for my boy.
Yeah, pray for my boy. Pray for my boy. But the other day, I had an episode 17, where I recorded for the second time with my friend Caden. And it was an amazing discussion. We had a great interview. All the technology finally worked well. The audio matched up with the video. There wasn't any delay. There's none of this stuff. None of the normal headaches that I have with recording each podcast and editing it happened. And I was like, oh, this is great. And so when I was editing the episode, I exported a draft to a spot on the software that I use to record, and so I realized that there were some edits that I still wanted to make within the software before I downloaded it to my computer. So I went to go delete this export, but I accidentally deleted the original recording itself.
Okay.
And so like the whole episode was just gone.
Oh man.
And this was like I'm laying in bed at like 11:30 p.m. at night, and I cannot tell you like the despair that hit me, because I hadn't dropped an episode in almost a month, and I was like, I need this episode, like, because I at one point I had like over 100 monthly listeners, and then because I hadn't been able to post in a while, I'd lost like a lot of listeners, and I was like, I need this episode. And so when I like deleted it, I was like frantically trying to refresh the page, hoping that it would appear. And I like, I was like, literally went kind of crazy in that moment. Like, I was like, I literally just like fell on my knees. And I normally wear like this cross necklace,
Yeah.
right? But that day I was just wearing like a gold chain. And I took off the gold chain. I was like, God, like, this is me taking off the world. Like, I am just like, God, I don't know what to do in this situation. Like, I need this episode. Like, I need, please. Like, it was one of the most desperate pleading prayers where I
Yeah.
was like, God, please help me find a way to get this episode back. And it turned out being like a really simple solution. Like, I just emailed like customer support, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll recover that file for you.
Oh,
And it was
nice.
fixed by the morning,
Okay. Yeah.
And so, like, but in that moment, like, I was like, I thought it was done. Like, it was
Yeah.
over with. It was the end of the world. It was the biggest thing. But the amount of desperation and just pleading that I prayed with was just another level. And every moment in my life where I've had just a sense of urgency and a sense of desperation to the way that I pray, that's when there's miracles. That's when things turn out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like on the mission, like the times where I would like literally get on my knees and be like, God, I can't do this anymore. Like, I want to go home. Like, I miss my family. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I need your strength. I need your grace to change me and help me take up my cross and follow Christ, because I can't do this. When I had prayers like that, dude, that's what changed everything. That's when like the real power of God came into my life.
Yeah. When we put that energy in, we put all of our energy into our prayers. I don't think it makes them necessarily more heard. I don't think it necessarily makes them more important or bigger or better than any of the other prayers, right? But there is something about putting all of our energy and all of our thoughts into one thing that can bring the results that we need in that exact moment. I think God recognizes that I know that God recognizes that we're human and we experience emotions like a heart rate monitor, up and down, up and down, up and down. And He knows that when we're in those really, really heightened moments of emotion, that we're going to need something extra special to calm us down. And we're going to need something extra special to get us out of that way of thinking. And something recently, my dad recently told me about what's called an I don't know prayer. And that's basically you get on your knees after, something has happened that you just still aren't able to wrap your heads around, something just absolutely, kind of maybe mind shattering. You just don't really know what to make of this situation. And you get on your knees and you say, God, this is an I don't know prayer. I don't know how to process this. I don't know what's going to happen with my future. I don't know how I'm going to be able to react or how I'm going to be able to show up to the people in my life tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know you do. And I know you can help me get through this. So I'm just going to let you handle this because I have no idea how I can in this state of mind that I'm in, I have no idea what the light of tomorrow is going to look like and I feel like it's not going to come. So I'm giving this to you. I don't know, but I trust that you do know. And that kind of like opened up my mind. There's a lot of different types of prayers that we can offer to God. Sometimes a prayer is just going to be all about gratitude, and it's going to say, God, I appreciate all of these different things, and that prayer can have like a different impact on you. I think the secret to life is simple appreciation and appreciating the people around you, appreciating the things that you do have, focusing on what you do have, right, rather than what you don't have. There's prayers that you offer in desperation. You're like, I really, really need this to happen. And like, how much I need this. You know how much I feel I need this. So like give me something. But I also accept like your will. You know, I accept that if this is something you don't think I need, like help me to accept that. Because a whole, part of having faith in God is being able to accept the circumstances in your life. And that's a lot easier said than done. When something really, really sucky comes along, something really sucky happens, the last thing you want to do is like accept your situation and move on because you're like you're still holding on to it. You're still holding on to the emotions attached with that negative situation. But depending on what we need in life in that moment, I think that will determine the type of prayer we offer. And we can get different kinds of results based off of the type of prayer we offer. Whether we need to accept our situation, whether we just need the capacity to accept our situation. And that's kind of another role Christ has played in my life is he helps me to accept my circumstances a lot quicker and helps me to move on and to let go. You know?
That's why I love the book of Psalms.
Yeah.
When we were, the year that we were kind of studying the New Testament the Old Testament in Come Follow Me, the Come Follow Me like header for the week was like the somewhere in the Bible, I can't remember where it says, "Blessed is he that readeth the book of Psalms," or something. It was like, "He that readeth these words will have eternal life," or something.
Yeah.
There's like some kind of really cool promise associated with reading the book of Psalms. And so I made it a goal to actually read the book of Psalms each night. There's something about my ADHD brain where when I get on my knees and I close my eyes, my brain just shuts off
Yeah.
and I just like completely zone out. And then I'll just like sit there for like 5 minutes and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, sorry God." So anyway, I was just trying to pray and then, "Oh yeah, my bad God, sorry, I zoned out again." And
Yep.
and
Yep.
so I really had to like switch up and be creative with the way that I pray and be like a little unconventional with it. So like for the longest time I would read out aloud the Psalms like on my phone or on my iPad or on my scriptures. And then whatever the theme, I just go, chapter per chapter. A lot of the Psalm chapters are like 5, 6 verses, so it's really easy. Some of them are like 114 just out of nowhere.
Yeah, man.
So you gotta like break those up into chunks
At
and
least.
then yeah, And but yeah, I'd like read a little bit from Psalms and then I would like start my prayer, and I found that helped a lot. What also has helped me is like I'm really good at pacing and like thinking when I pace. So like sometimes I won't kneel and pray. I know we're supposed to like kneel and pray, and that's like a way to show like submission to God. For me personally, like sometimes I focus better when I'm just like my eyes are open and I'm just walking around and pacing and I'm just talking out loud.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I love that.
like a lot of times, like when I have sessions with clients, like I will do that in my office. I'll just like kind of make like a little L, like loop,
Yeah.
and I'll just like pace back and forth, and I'll just be like, "God, like I don't know how to help this client. Like I'm a 26-year-old intern. Like this is like a 40-year-old man that's having marital troubles. I don't know. I haven't even like kissed a girl in 2 years. Like, nah, I'm just. It hasn't been that long.
Hey, no shame. No shame, bro. No shame.
Yeah, no. It actually hasn't. But um, I'm just being funny. Or am I? I don't know. Who knows? Um, but but yeah, I'll be like, God, I legitimately don't know how to help this person. You know, like my expertise and my knowledge is not. I have not been in this field long enough. I have not studied enough. I haven't taken like actual therapy classes yet in my grad program. So like I don't know how to, work with complex trauma that this person is experiencing. Like I need you to like to give me revelation
Something.
like in this moment. And so yeah, just having that like that desperation of like in the moment, like God, I need an answer now. Like right here, right now. And not obviously placing demands on God. Like, if you want to give me an answer, that's cool. But if not, That's also cool. We have the faith to, you know, let the rain be, to have the rain stopped, or the faith to endure the rain.
Yeah.
I think is a cool quote that I've heard, but just finding ways to communicate in deeper, more desperate ways. And I think not just with God, but also in the relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think for the longest time, it was really hard for me to understand what a relationship with Christ or what a relationship with God meant. Like when people would say, "Yeah, I know Christ lives." Like I had no idea what that meant. I was like, how do you know Christ lives? You never seen him. Sure, you can read about him. Like, how do you understand an influence, so to speak, when that's kind of what they are for you? Like your relationship with them is very different from a relationship you'd have with one of your buddies, with your friends, your family, someone you're dating. And so, like all good relationships, you just have to take time to get to know them, and you have to take time to talk to them and figure out how they talk to you. And once you start putting in that effort, then it's like little by little, you can start seeing, small miracles, small coincidences that start pointing your mind towards them and start helping you understand a little bit more about their nature, a little bit more about how they feel about you, and having like emotional experiences with those beings. And at the end of the day, like the key to that is it's just prayer. It's finding time in your day, whether it's in the morning, whether it's in the evening, whether it's throughout your day, just finding time to talk to them. Because like all the best relationships I have in my life, they're able to be maintained because we maintain that communication and we stay in contact with each other. Like, of course, there are some people that like you cannot see for 10 years and you see them and you catch up just like you were old friends, right? But for the last 10 years, they haven't been able to have an impact in your life. So it's the same way with God. Like, you can leave him behind for 10 years and come back to him and still be able to talk to him like normal and still be able to recognize him and say, yeah, like, of course I know who God is. Of course I know who Christ is. But like you haven't talked to them for the last 10 years. And so you've missed out on a lot of really great opportunities to connect and to like see their hand in your life and to see how they're benefiting you. Because the more you see their hand in your life, the more you want them to be in your life. It's it's just like any good friend. Like the more you're able to serve them, the more they're able to serve you, the more you want to be around them and create this stronger knit relationship. And the good thing about God and Jesus Christ is like their friendship comes with a very, very powerful influence. And like we've been talking about this entire podcast, it's like focusing on Christ, our perspective changes and everything tends to line up. And it all just starts with learning about him, learning about what it means to be a perfect being, and asking yourself in different situations like that you don't know how to handle, like what would Jesus do in this situation? Like I feel like Jesus is he's perfectly confident. He's a perfectly balanced individual. He knows when to be angry. He knows when to flip tables, but he also knows like when to wash people's feet. Like he knows how to show up to everyone in every situation. He knows exactly what people need when they need it. And it's just looking at my own weaknesses and not like beating myself up about my weaknesses, but just thinking, you know what? This is something I want to fix about myself. Let me turn to Jesus and see what he does in this situation, and I can follow that example. And in that process, that relationship just starts to feel closer. Like you start to really, really believe that Christ is a real being that existed 2,000 years ago, or that was born on the earth 2,000 years ago. He's not just some abstract idea, but like the more energy and focus you put into these beings, the more familiar they'll start to feel to you. And so, it takes a lot of effort. I think there are a lot of people in the world that are kind of born with this innate ability to believe in Christ and to believe in God. They're just born with faith. Like it's kind of a gift. In my case, it was like it's been a journey to like figure out how I can honestly tell myself like I know Christ lives. Like to get to that point, like it's been a journey. It's been a lot of hard things have had to happen for me to get to this point, but it's been a lot of effort on my part and a lot of channeling my energy and thoughts into them. But I guess, yeah, that's what I would say there is, all relationships have that common denominator. Like you have to get to know the people you want to be close to, and they have to get to know you, you know.
Mm, dang, man. I know a game changer for me has been to pray sincerely that Christ can put his hands on relationships in my life. Because I know if I'm left to my own strength and my own devices, like I'm gonna mess up some relationships.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you and I have talked about this, but I've lost friendships because of blind spots.
Yeah.
Because of ways that I wasn't aware that I was hurting or offending others, or that I was simply neglecting the relationship. And so relying on Christ to show me those blind spots, being like, God, I have hurt this person. Their perspective of me has been damaged because of my poor choices. And I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to heal this. I don't know how to heal the contempt that I feel for them. You know, can you put your hands on this relationship and can you heal it? Because I know whatever you put your hands on lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so if you can put your hands on this relationship and save me from my foolishness and, the things that I've done to mess this up, Lord, I know that if you will, that it will live. Because I've read about you doing it all throughout the New Testament, and I have faith. And that's where I think it changes,
Yeah.
Oh,
I love that, man. I love that. Whatever you put your hands on lives.
yes, sir. Dang, man. Well, we have set the new record for episode length on the Turn Outward podcast. We have beat Louisa Fowler Packham, my friend Louisa. Hers was about an hour and 46 minutes. We are now at an hour and 54 minutes. At this point, we should just push for 2 hours.
Might as well
all
go
right?
for 11 more minutes.
Nah,
Six more minutes.
yeah, no. But no, this has truly been a great conversation, Matt. I appreciate you taking your time coming out here late at night. It's like 10:48 p.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Might be a little too late for tacos. Hopefully we can find somewhere that's still open, but genuinely appreciate you and your time, man. Appreciate the things that you've shared. You've definitely uplifted me. Each podcast episode I do, I swear I walk away from it going, that's the best interview I've had. And that's certainly how I feel. Like even I had one this morning and this morning I was like, that's the best one I've had. And now I'm like, this is the best one I've had. And so it's just I love being able to do this. I'm really grateful for your time, man. And if this podcast episode has benefited you or uplifted you in any way, please do whatever you can to share this podcast with other people. You can follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're hoping to get on more podcast mediums in the future. You can also follow the podcast Instagram page on Turn Outward Podcast. You can follow the page, like the posts, share the posts on your story, share the posts with your friends. It helps the algorithm. It helps the reels that I post get out to more people, and then more people can view the links in my bio and follow the podcast, and helps the podcast reach more people. At the end of the day, the whole point of Turn Outward is to reach other people, right? And so if I want to turn outward to as many people as I possibly can through this podcast, and so anything you can do to share it, whether that be on social media or on whatever forum you listen to your podcast on, is greatly appreciated. So thank you for listening to this episode. And Matt, thanks again for your time, man.
Thanks, man. This has been awesome. I've never done anything even close to something like this. So likewise, appreciate all the things you shared with me, and stuff like this helps me to really internalize a lot of the beliefs that I might have had before, or a lot of the ways of thinking I might have had before that I just forgotten about. So this was kind of like a way to resurface a lot of things that I used to feel a lot more strongly about. So appreciate the conversation, man.
Ditto.
Ditto.
Appreciate it, bro. We out.
Bye.